So here we are. It is PyWare Live. This is session 2. We're going to create your first moment. This is going to be, I think, a lot more fun than last week. Although last week, I'm not saying it wasn't fun, Joe, but this is more fun because we're actually going to be writing drill. As I said before, if you're watching this at home, the recording or live, you can download the files on the page where you signed up, and then you can play along at home. I think that would be really, really the best way for everybody to be doing this. While you're waiting, everybody, while you're watching, if you have a question, put it into the chat and I'll be monitoring that. And then let me know there if you want to ask the question live. Like, you can turn on your mic or your camera and say, hey, Joe, I want to ask about this. Wait a minute, what did you just do or whatever? But just monitor, I'm going to be monitoring those in the chat as we go. So yeah, I think that's that. Joe, I'll get out of the way and let you get started. Thanks everybody for being here. By the way, let me remind you also one more thing. Joe, of course, has a course at Marching Arts Education called How to Write Drill, PyWare and Drill Design Basics. Really, really super helpful. So I'd recommend that for you if you are sort of new to PyWare, or you want to just make sure you know how to use all the tools, or you want to see how he does his drill design process. And if you know anybody that's wanting to learn drill, that's a great way for them to start and get it all going. So now I will get out of the way.
All right, guys, it's great to see you. Tonight we have an assignment, a drill assignment that we need to jump in and do. Now I've done a little bit of the legwork for us just so that we don't get bogged down doing some of the menial tasks in PyWare. We will do some of it, but I wanted to kind of focus on the prep to write, the preparing the file, and then of course writing this intro that we're going to do. So we have an assignment. The assignment is here at the very bottom of the page. If you're keeping up, I won't scroll my pen. I don't know why. There we go. All right. The assignment says you have been asked to write a drill for East West High School Marching Band. They are a locally competitive band in Virginia. They have around 100 students enrolled in the marching band, and they hold 1 week of band camp of 9 to 5s and rehearse Tuesdays and Thursdays from 4 to 7. Now, I like to get all this information from my clients because I feel like it's important for me as a designer to know how much band camp and prep work they do, how often do they rehearse during the week. I even go as far to ask, do they have a visual tech? Do they have a staff throughout the entire season, or is it just for band camp? Because some schools just do a couple of people on staff or a lot of people on staff for band camp. And then once the season starts, they're kind of down to the band directors and maybe a color guard and drumline person. They would like to compete in October. They are capable of learning between 60 to 80 sets of drill. It's a lot of drill, a lot of moves. So we know that we can, when we listen through the music, that it'll probably be okay if we wanted to do some 8-count sets or something where we have a layered sets for four-count sets that build into something. Their show is called NY, New York, New York, and they have 4 back vertical panels. So we got to create those when we get in. They're 8 by 10 foot. They're going to be painted to look like the New York skyline, and front drops as well. So front drops are used across the front sideline sometimes to hide color guard equipment. So we got to put those in. So those are 4 feet tall and 15 feet wide to go along the sideline on either side of the pit, which will take up between the 40s. Now the instrumentation is here, and we're going to go through that in a little bit, but I've taken the time to create the first set, the first hit set, and we're going to work backwards from there. So you don't have to worry too much about the numbers just yet. I'll talk a little bit more about these groupings and why I chose it when we get into the drill. So having this bit of back information is super important when planning to write the drill, knowing kind of what the kids are capable of and who's going to be teaching them. Okay. Now, the first thing we got to do, of course, is listen to the music and pull up the score. So I'm going to pull up the score here, and we need to make our count sheet. Now, the first thing that I notice when I look at this file is this, and that is the tempo. And the tempo says 186. So it's a really fast beginning statement here. So we're going to go ahead and listen to it. And then watch it with the score, and then go ahead and kind of jot down how you'd see this happening. Now, because the tempo is 186, I'm probably not going to have the band move a whole lot at that tempo if I can stand it. So the very first thing that happens is a 2-bar percussion build here. You can see there's no music here. Then the band comes in double forte. So this should be a big wall of sound coming from the group. Now, when you listen to MP3, you can kind of hear the cadence of the music and how it works. And I put down in my on my count sheet that this would be a move 8, and then a 24 count move, but in halftime. So these next 6 bars, you've got kind of the horns and woodwinds kind of soaring here, beep, bop, beep. And the low brass answer, bop, beep, bop, beep, bop. Da, 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 and it kind of moves on, and it's just kind of epic. But the next bit is where are we going to come out of that? How are we going to move from that 24 count move, that 12-step halftime push? Well, there's a lot of quarter notes here in these 2 bars, beep, bop, beep, bop, beep, bop, beep, bop, and another arrival chord. So I would probably have them move there in the fast tempo, reshape to something else, and then there's a couple little quotes from some of the tunes that are in the latter part of the show, chords with the horns soaring, and then the trumpets and woodwinds. And these 4 bars would probably be the next move, 16 counts. And that's probably even going to be in halftime. And then just hold for these power chords to the end. I think that would be a good way to do it. Or we'd probably go all the way to here. So it would be 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, another 24 counts, which would be, it could be even be a halftime push and then a chord at the end. So once I've kind of decided that, or if you were provided that by a staff, then you could go ahead and hop into PyWare and set up your file. So now that we're back in PyWare here and we're going, we can, first of all, set up our props. So if you're following along, you probably see the band is already kind of on the field. I have not labeled the winds. I did label the guard and I did label the drums because it's important whether you're writing forwards or backwards to kind of know where those folks are. Now I make my color guard dots purple and my drumline dots red. That's just me. I even make my brass usually black and my woodwinds blue. But in this case, I don't know what my winds are yet. I just have the correct amount of winds on the field. So there are 75 winds on the field. Okay, now I believe the setup said that we need to add some props to the back. These were 8x10 vertical panels. So we're going to do that on these squares here where I've added them for you. So let's go ahead and add those in. We've got to make sure we're at count 0. And we're going to take the point tool and I'm going to make these back flats. So I'm just going to click in there. I made those kind of easy for you so you could see where to click. And I like to do them all at the same time. They're all the same size. So we've created those props. They're X's. That's fine. They'll show up at first like people. But then we're going to go ahead and head to the visual editing tool, which is the little red flag, and then performer prop, which is right in the middle. And then we're going to go to shape prop and select vertical panel, or panel vertical, I should say. Now, Pieware always measures things in yards. So if you want to do feet, you've got to select feet. So for width, it's an 8. For height, it's a 10. And apply changes. So now we've got our nice flats in the back. Now, one thing I like to do for all my Pieware files is I like to create a pit. So I'm going to select my point tool again, and I always make them just about 4 steps off the front sideline. So down here, I added the pit, and I'll select them, click my rear view performer prop. And usually I usually select medium pit, unless I know a band is very small, then I'll use the small one, or real large and use the large one. Now you can go the extra step, and if you'd like, you can add some performers in the pit just to make it happen. I usually just use the point tool. I'll click on a 16th step, and I'll go through and just add them in real quick. You can't really see it on the Pieware grid, but if you look in the rear view mirror here, you can kind of see them pop it in there. So there we go. We got a couple of people down there. The last thing we need to do to set up our props and all that stuff is put those front drops in. They said 4 feet tall, 15 feet wide. So we're going to add them here, accept, go select them again, performer prop, right in the middle, shape prop, panel vertical. Make sure you select feet, width 15, so they're 1 yard line, and they'll be 4 feet tall. And now we've got the stage set for our drill. Okay, so one thing I like to do is I like to lock my props down. So I'll select them, hold shift, select all the front guys, go to display, lock selection. Now those props are locked, so you can't accidentally select them. Okay, now the next thing, of course, is to make sure you're performing on the correct grid, whether that is high school hashes or college hashes, that sort of thing. Or if you have a specific grid with hash marks and other of the lines on the field that you like, add those in. I usually just use this stock grid. You create the props, create the pit. Next thing we got to do, add our page tabs. Bottom right-hand corner, unlock it, create a page 1 at count 0. And we put in our count sheet when we wrote it down, when I was talking about the music, that we're going to move 8. We're going to move 24. Now, even though we might be doing halftime in here, I'm still going to make this a 24 count move, even though I'm only going to move them a 12-step distance. And the reason I do that is because I can use the march tool where they march halftime. And it makes sense with the measures and the counts to always work within the tempo that the score is given. And when I give directions, I'll say it's a 24 count move in halftime, 12 steps.
Hey,
Next
Joe,
page.
jump in. Can I interrupt you for a second?
Go ahead.
So when the file that everybody was supposed to download that we set up for them, is that supposed to have this preset drill on it?
The one that's in there should have this on it, yes.
Okay, because we have a couple people that are saying that they don't see that preset drill in the file. So I want to make sure they all have the right thing.
Okay. If you go to it and download it, it should be in there. I put it in there.
Okay, so if I could ask if somebody else could weigh in that's watching this tonight also, and sorry for the interruption, Joe, and you just let us know if you were able to find the file that has the preset drill and it's ready to roll for you. And if not, of course, people can do this later and just keep watching, but I wanted to double check with you, Joe.
Yeah, it should be in there. If you downloaded it during the last time we met, I did update it after that, but it was like the next day. So maybe that could be the problem. So if you downloaded all the files the first time that you got in, maybe that could be the thing.
Okay, then that's probably something I didn't know, Joe. I apologize because I put those separately on the website, so I can go try to find those and put the right one in.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I put them in the Google Drive. I thought everyone was going to the Google Drive.
Yeah, I had moved that to the website. Sorry about that miscommunication.
Oh,
Also,
it's all
since
right.
I've interrupted you, I want to make sure that when you are looking at the screen that says share screen, that you have on the bottoms marked share sound.
Share sound. Ooh, sharing screen.
See, it says on the bottom left corner, there's a share sound. Just want to make sure that's been set.
Ooh, I think we figured it out. Let me see. Let me test it. Let me finish putting these page tabs in.
Got it.
All right. So we've got a hold 8. Now I like to make my hold pages A pages. So I'm going to double click on that page tab and then select subpage tab. So that way I don't have I have those pages. They don't really count towards the page total because the kids don't really need to learn a whole much there other than the fact that they hold. So I usually do hold pages. Our next one was a 16 count half time, which is 8 steps. And then hold 12 to the end. And I'll also make that a hold page. A good thing to do when you're syncing is watch the thing going across your page tabs just to see if everything that you put in is going to work. Okay, so I'll sync it, click my space bar. That's why I want to do some halftime. Fast. 5, 6, 7, 8, 4. Whew. Man, that thing is burning. Now, one little thing I like to do is just a little kind of OCD thing I like to do is I go and I get rid of all the counts in the file that I don't need. And a way to do that is to go to your last page tab, grab your yellow anchor and run it across, and it swaps with your red one. And all these dead counts, I don't know why. I know I don't need them. So I go to utilities, count editor, shorten, lengthen transition, and I turn it into like 10. And then that way I get rid of all these dead counts. For whatever reason, I like that. It's something that I do. I'm weird about that. All right. And then the most important thing, Control S, save your file. Okay. So I hope with all the mix up with my speakers and some people jumping in and grabbing the file that hopefully everybody who needed it has it, and you can jump right in. Maybe while you're trying to or getting that pulled up, I can chat at you about what we're going to do next instead of doing a whole lot of stuff. All right, now we are going to make the decision to write this drill working from the end back to the beginning. So when you get into Pieware and you create a set like this, say this was your, you had this dream set in mind, and this was where you wanted to have that last final impact point. If you design it on page 1, it just kind of sits here on all the other page tabs. So if you decide that you want to start designing from page 5 and go backwards, you just click on page, or you go to the last page tab, and then you click on the arrow, which turns everything backwards. Now it's a little weird, and you'll see this while we go, that all the motion that you're creating is essentially going to be the opposite when you play it forwards. So you will find that you probably make a few little mistakes, or you end up tweaking things a little bit, but it's a great way to make sure that that first impact is exactly what you want, and that you have everybody in the right place for the next chunk. You know, say in this music, you had a big woodwind feature and it was in 12 counts from this set, you could make sure that all of the people in this arc are the woodwinds, and they can, you know, quickly group up to play that next hit. Or these 5 color guard right here are going to be rifles. You could get them to the front quickly. So knowing after the first set or after the first chunk where everybody is or needs to be to make the rest or the next chunk of the opener, you know, possible, is a great way to do it. But it can be a little tricky writing backwards. So we're going to do that. Let me just check. Now, here's the next bit. When we were talking about our assignment, a good thing to do is to look through your instrumentation that you see and just make totals. So in this case, we have 12 flutes, 10 clarinets, 8 altos, 3 tenors, 2 baries, and 2 bass clarinets. And I like to get the woodwind total. So that's 37 woodwinds. We have 14 trumpets, 6 mellows, 8 trombones, 4 baritones, and 6 souzes, which is 38, which makes our total wins 75. So automatically as a drill designer, when I see the number 75, I'm writing drill thinking in groupings of 5. That's 3 lines of 25. That's, you know, 5 by 5, lots of 5s. You can do dice that way. You can do 2, 3, 2, lots of different combinations of layering front to back. So 5s is the way that I'm going to set this up. So when I make my dream set in Pieware, I'm going to make sure that I'm thinking in 5s. So in this case, this front arc was 25, and the back parts of the crown totaled up to 50. So if you see that, you can select them and you can see 50 performers back there. So we know that we can work in groups of 5s, 25s, 10s, 20s, whatever it might be, to you know, be successful with grouping people up. All right, so the very first transition that we have to do, of course, is this page 4A to page 5. So this was a 16 count move, but we had planned to do it in halftime. So we know that we can't move people very far, you know, any further than 8 counts. So I chose to do this same set, but just have it kind of expand and get larger. So a good way to do that would be to highlight everybody, and maybe we'll do the drums differently. But I'm going to use my resize tool, and I'm just going to scale this back to where, yep, they're at about a 2.5 at the, you know, the tightest. Well, this is getting a little far over here. There we go. And then I'm just going to arrow back maybe. Yeah, that'll be good. 12.6 to 5, which is about a 6 to 5 at halftime should look pretty good. So let's go ahead. I'm going to accept that. And then I'm actually going to take my push tool and I'm going to put this middle guy right on the 50. And then I think that'll be good. So this is an expansion where it just kind of opens up. Yeah, that looks nice. Good. Now we got to get the drum line in. I'm going to use I'll show you guys, if you don't know this, we're going to do the line tool, and we're going to use the multiple intervals. If you don't know what the multiple interval tool is, you can make a line with multiple intervals in it without having to do like the point tool or whatever. So I know my tenor drums are over here, and I like to keep them at a minimum 3 steps. My snares I like to keep at a 2, and bass drums I like to keep at a 3. So I'm going to do 3 tenor drums times 3. never mind. I got to do this first. I got to do my selection, line tool, select my interval. 3 performers times 3, which is a 3-step interval, comma. So the tenors are good. 4 snares, 4 times 2. There's my 4 snare drums, comma, and then 5 bass drums times 3. And if you see there, we have a good, yep, we can make that happen. Yep, that'll work. Okay, now we can do this as well. We can select everyone, and we know we want to do this at halftime. So we'll go ahead to our visuals editing tool, and we have to turn up, make our timeline go forwards again. Go to this march, style, and pace. We're going to pace it out to half step per beat. So now we've got halftime and a hold. See how that looks. Here we go. And you could play with it a little bit more and see if maybe we could shrink it back just a little bit, but these end guys are going to get close to being 6, 6.5 to 5, maybe 5 to 5. And they're going to have quite a bit of velocity, or that slow tempo might look kind of awkward. So it's best probably to play it safe. All right. Now, the next set would be a hold, that hold 8. And I chose to do a hold there because the page before it, they're doing that really fast 186 tempo and they arrive at that big chord. So we wanted to give them a chance to play that 186 tempo, march it really fast, and then hold and pop those horns up, and then move the halftime at the end. So let's go ahead and do 3 to 4, since that was a hold. Now here's where you have to make a decision. What do I want that first big push to be? This 24 count push. Now in my case, I made it a kind of a full block type form that's going to push down the field. So we need to make it something where the people spread back out, and then it can be a form that is easily pushable, if you will. So in this case, I thought, let's just get them to a solid form. So because I know I've got 25s, 25, 25, I just did 3 lines of 25. Now, you could go right to a block, but I didn't quite do that just yet. So I'm going to use my line tool. Oop, I got to go back. Sorry, I got to be on this page. And they only have 8 counts to get there. So that's the thing that's a little bit kind of squirrely with this. So let's see. Let's try to play within a 3-step interval here. Good. Is this guy on the 50? The middle 50 person is still there. I'm just going to do this. Sometimes we do this in Pieware. If you don't know, I'll create the form, but I'll create it kind of somewhere else because there's so many people in this general area. So I'm going to just kind of create it up here, and then I'll scoot it back and kind of fine tune it from there. All right. I know I need another 25. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to start selecting 5s here. Maybe we can get some 5s. I'm going to go the outside of these spokes so that maybe these things here can rotate. So they can rotate out to the crown. It might be better to do it that way. Yeah, let's give that a shot. Now I'm going to go ahead and do something that is usually a pretty good thing to do, is to glue your people together. So I'm going to glue from left to right. I'm going to do this there. The middle, I'm just going to have to make kind of, since I'm going to do more of a rotation on either side, the middle, I'm just going to make as symmetrical as I can. You'll see in a second what I mean. Now, don't get me wrong. When I was designing this, it didn't go this fast. So if you're sitting there going, how does he know all the answers? It's not because I'm super amazing. I actually originally did this where half of these, like I did these 5. So I did these 5 blue guys, these 5, and these 5, and then I made the 25, and that was good, but it didn't have the velocity or momentum. And then I thought it would be really hard because you'd have these small lines of people gating in, and it may be hard to dress. Whereas if you can get everybody in these lines just to fold in, it might look good. Now I have the 25 line in front of here to use as the guide. So I'll just make it behind them. And I know this thing is screaming at you over here in the corner. Don't worry about that. Just get your form right first and then go from there. All right. So the last thing to do is to make my other 25. I'm going to do it that way. And then I already have a guide down here because I have lines of 25. I know it's automatically making these 3-step interval, which is what I want. Now that my form is made, I'm going to go ahead and move it back with the push tool. Now, I hope I'm not losing too many of you. I know that last week I went kind of through all the tools and went super slow. This week I'm going a little bit faster. Hopefully that's okay. Hopefully that's okay with you, and that's not throwing you for a loop if you're following along. And hopefully we got that file if you did want to follow along. All right, so I've moved this back. It looks all right, except these guys down here are really booking it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to make it easier for them. So let's go to our resize tool. I'm going to use stretch. I'm just going to bring this in. And then, let's see, 6-step interval, 5-step interval. Now, I'll tell you this, or 5.5. I'm going to go ahead and go, because remember, these people back here will be marching this forwards. So I'm going to move this up like that. And I think that's going to be okay. It's going to have some velocity to it. I know it's going to have some velocity to it. Yeah, it's got a little bit of velocity. These guys here on the ends. But I think it's has kind of a cool look to it. I could maybe play with it to get it a little bit more closer to a 6 to 5 forwards if we needed to. I could back the front people up, but I'm going to keep it. I'll keep it there for right now. Now, how are we going to get these people who are integrated out of here? And where are they going to go with the color guard? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these 5. I'm going to make the decision to put these 5 up front. And then we'll move these guys, these color guard folks to the back. So let's go ahead and move them out. I'm going to use the point tool. Uh-oh, I'm designing backwards. Oh no, what am I doing? It's okay. I can hit flip. It happens sometimes. Accept. Now, you notice there's a big collision going on the 50. We can fix that if we'd like. We can do that. We'll do that on the, maybe we can do it in backwards mode. All right, adjuster tool. Click on that color guard person who's running right through this person here. Hit edit path. And then fewer hand. Oh, no, you can't do it backwards, can you? You got to do it going forwards. That's all right. We'll click the arrow, go back forwards. Edit path. get rid of some handles, make it a curved path, and then you can just kind of modify that. Now, it will be a set where these 5 color guard probably won't be able to spin too much. They'll probably have to have something where they face the form and kind of run into the form, and then they're there for that 8 count hold to spin. So let's look at that. Good, and we could probably stand to make these 2 folks here do a curve path in, just because the other people are having some velocity going this way. So maybe kind of curving through there. And then this person will edit path curving through there. That way they kind of get out of the way of the people going in. Let's see. Yeah, much better, much closer. All right, so we're still working backwards. Now, I want to make sure that the color guard in the back is able to have that big push that's going on, which we're about to do before this. So I'd like to get them kind of outlining what the winds are doing. So the winds are going to be pushing. We want to be able to see those flags going around. I'm going to mesh these guys up a little bit, but I don't want to lose the drum line. And my drum line is going to be real close to these props. So I got to kind of get the drum line a little bit closer to the winds. So I'm going to do this type of thing. We're going to make kind of a frame, if you will, around the winds. So I chose to get these groupings 6 and 5. And then we'll just kind of arc it up here. Say kind of 8 behind the winds out of here. So right, it has a little bit of velocity there. That's going to be a forward march, so that'll be fine. And then we'll kind of mirror that on the other side of the field from what we're doing on the other side of the field. All right. So now we've kind of split the guard in the back, and then that way we can make our drumline folks do their thing. I chose to kind of block these drummers up so that they can fit in this little spot here, so that we can push this whole form back on that next set. So let's do that. Let's do that. I'll create it. I like to use the point tool when I make these blocks. Now we've got 12. You could do 4. You could do 4, 4, and 4 if you wanted to. I'm trying to go for something symmetrical. And the way I came up with this was to do, I did a diamond. So I did this type of idea. And then because I had 2 extra, I snuck them there. So it's kind of like a double V, if you will. But that obviously wouldn't really work when it comes to the pathing. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to create it again. Probably should be using my pen, shouldn't I? Could use my pen. Pen is kind of fun. And then I'll do bass drums like that. Now I know it's not centered on the 50, so I created my form, but I can always bring it back. And that looks to be about right. I can do that. So now looking at what we've got flag toss, catch. And that should be quite cool. Now, if you were to do another page after that, you would need to make sure to turn the march and pace tool back to the fast tempo. All right. All right. So we're still writing backwards. All right. Now I like to, whenever I do some of these like block float moves, I don't always like for it to just be a float. I like to do some sort of windowing, the windows move to lines or the lines move to windows, something changes within them as they float. I feel like it's a little bit more, I don't know, it's just, it looks better. It doesn't look as boring. So what I decided to do when I was putting this drill together is I decided to do every other line like this and to add some density to this. So now I'm using my box selection tool and I'm doing every other set of 3 here. Now you could do this by gluing and pasting and doing AB. I'm just doing it this way. So now I've got every other person. And again, I'm doing that thing where I create the form. I'm going to move them 3 steps forward. I have a 6-step interval front to back. So if I did a 3, now I've got sort of a dense form, if you can see that. And then what I'm going to do with that is I'm just going to move it straight back because we want that push to be straight back. So this again is highlighting using the backwards method. And in this case, kind of the most important section method. The most important section being the winds. The winds have kind of a unison music here. So it's not, terribly important for us to be grouped up in sections and this sort of thing. And we'll pick who's going to go where just a little bit later. How am I on time? Excellent. All right. So we're going to float these guys back. Let's bring these PERT guys back. Probably. Okay. We can see if we can go a little bit further. There we go. So that's going to be an 8-5 for them. Now I know that because over here it says 16-5 on my thing. So I know that if it's 16-5 with a 24 counts, when I have that, it'll be 8-5. So again, with the winds, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to back them up. I'll use the push tool this time. 1, 2, 3. I hit my push tool. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And yep, that'll be 16-5. Good. So now we've got a push. Now, what is the color guard going to do? Well, let's see if we can, we got to make the decision whether we just float them back or whether we do something with them. So let's just see, we can float them back. Just using the push tool. All right. And could do that. That's still kind of stagnant. It's still kind of a stagnant look to it. See if we can maybe rotate them out into something. Okay. So in this case, I'm going to go maybe give them a dot right on the grid. And again, I would probably come to this conclusion after trying 2 or 3 different things. So don't think he just knows what to do. No, I've prepared for the seminar today, and I want to make sure that you guys don't spend time watching me fail. So if you find that it's the same thing with you when you write, that you need to try 5 or 6 different looks, that's what I do too. And just having mastery over the program allows me to do 5 or 6 different looks quickly. So that's kind of the most important thing, is getting that mastery over the program so that you don't struggle to put on the grid what's in your head. So since I've got these guys right across the front, I'm gonna kind of continue with that that look, kind of covered back to front. Now this came about because I didn't know how I wanted how to start it at the beginning, and then I got it. So this is what I came up with. So we've got kind of this frame here, and we allow the audience to see the percussion as well, because the percussion are the first thing that the audience hear. So we want to make sure that they can see them clearly and they're not being blocked. Okay. Now I'm going to go a little bit further back for the winds, only because they're getting a little close to this color guard in the front. I like to keep at a minimum a 6-step distance between my color guard, at least if they're flags and the winds. So we like to keep that distance, make sure that, you know, they don't get smacked with a flag, or their instrument doesn't get smacked with a flag. All right. So let's also do this. We're going to select everyone. We're going to hit our visuals editor. Can't do it when I'm in backwards mode. And then we'll go march and style pace. This is going to be a half time. So now we've got a halftime move. Let me just check the next page is back to, see, the next page, I'm just going to change back to 1 because we do want that one to be fast. Let me just change or check these. This one got changed to 1 as well. So if you do this as you go, you may need to kind of mess with it again. All right, so here's what we got now. We've got a big push, and we've got a quick restage and a hold, which could be a great spot for maybe a pop toss. And then we've got a restage or a expansion into the end hit. Fast. And it expands. Yeah, and if this look is not your cup of tea, if you didn't like how this morphed in with the color guard, again, you know, maybe play with just moving that forwards. The only reason I did is because I needed to get these color guard kind of towards the center, so that when we did get to this set, everybody still wasn't hanging out on the frame. So I needed to have them kind of fold into the middle so that they could be in the mix for all the hit stuff at the end. And those are little things that as you're going, you come up with, and you go, okay. And you may have floated this frame, which you love. You're like, oh, the frame is cool. And you float it to here, but then you go, oh no, everyone's out of position for this ending. Whereas now you get the same feel, but at the same time, they get to be in focus a little bit, which is, you know, really what you like to have. All right. We got one more page, guys. Stick with me. Hopefully you got that file. If you didn't, it's all my fault, but I do, we'll double check the session 3 one as well before the next one, because that one has 12 pages of drill. So we're going to really be jamming on that one. All right. Last set. Now you're going to notice something funny about this. Is that it immediately, when you hit this arrow, it's going to pop you back to that set. If you created your first set at count 0, it's going to do that to you. It's kind of a funny little thing that happens, but you're not going to freak out. You know, just hit edit to make sure your arrow is still working backwards. You're going to delete them. They're going to head back to that block that you're in. Now we need something from here that is a contraction or an expansion, something that is simple to do that instantly changes the look of the field, or at least has some velocity going to that first hit. So I chose to put these guys, take my groupings down as small as I could, so they can all kind of start posed type thing. And then when the drums play, they get set and it opens up into this big form, and everybody in the audience goes, wow, look how big that band is. So because I know we're working in fives, I thought let's see if we can pick some groupings here. So 15 works really well. 15 here, 15 here, 15 centered on the 50, 15 here, and 15 here. Now you could do 25, 25, and 25 if you only wanted 3 groups. But I chose to do 5 groups. I thought a smaller group might be better if you're doing, if you're doing poses or characterization or something like that. All right, so I'm going to use my resize tool. You may notice I use the resize tool quite a bit. I'm going to really crunch these guys down. Now, maybe scale will get me there. Let's see. Yeah, scale actually does a pretty good job of putting everybody on the grid. I did a 1 by 1. Okay. During the move, they're not playing. It's the percussion that's playing. So it's okay for that form to be condensed. It's even okay for that form in the end to be something scattered, but then it opens up. But this is a good way just to show the velocity of it. So I'm going to accept that. I'm just going to double check that these guys are all on the grid. They all look to be right on the grid, which is nice. It gives them an easy way to do, to learn that. So we're just going to do that in these groups. Shrink them down. Sometimes it's the simple ideas, expanding and contracting in your drill that, you think it was just, all we did was do the same form, but we just contracted it. Like that turns into the most entertaining drill that you write, so all of a sudden within this first all of a sudden we go from these small groups of people to this large group in 8 counts, and they stayed covered the whole time, which is nice. So they already stayed in their cover, they stay in their focus. Same thing here, they stay in their cover. Think about band camp. Those first 2 sets, these are the first 2 sets these freshmen are ever going to learn. So, it might be something where, it's good for them to be right behind somebody or the same person for the first two pages of drill, All right, fantastic. We still got to finish up the color guard. And what I'm going to do with the guard, I'm going to take these 5. And now we could put them with the groupings if we want, or we could put them between the groupings. I'm just going to select those. I'll bring these people here to match them. And again, I went into kind of trial and error mode with them when I was first writing it. I thought, what's a way we can get some good symmetry, that type of thing. And this seemed like a good match. Okay, yeah, that seems like a good idea. So let's bring them over here. Stretch, or I could do point tool. That might be okay. I'll do point tool again. So I'm just kind of creating the kind of that same look, but they also contract. Now I'm okay with making my color guard go a little bit bigger in terms of step size. I just feel like sometimes the bigger the motion from the color guard, the better they can spin, or they have that effort and that momentum going, and they're good. Now this is the percussion thing, so we don't want to tax them too much on it. So maybe what we'll do with them is we'll do the opposite of the winds. We'll open them up, or the winds will open up and they'll contract. That would be kind of cool. So let's move that up a little bit. They kind of fill this stage, but then they do the opposite of the winds. So everything pops out, opens up right away. Wall of sound, reshape to the crown, expand it, and you've got a good hit there. Now, again, like I said, I don't come to all these conclusions as fast as I just presented it. I would say it took probably 2 hours, more, probably twice as long as this to come up with that and how I wanted that to go that way. So it would be, something where, you want to keep practicing, putting some of those things into play where you're making decisions, and then you do 2 or 3 versions of it, and then you go, oh man, I got to go back and redo this move or redo that move so that I can get these people in the right place. So don't feel like you've got to work as fast as I did. Or you may still be saying, well, I want that to expand, but what tool was it again? If that's you, that's okay. Just take your time and use those big 4. In my case, my big 4, I don't think I use the line tool here. I never used the arc or circle or even curve in this one. It was all pretty much on the grid. We used a lot of resize tool in this one, a lot of expanding and contracting. We did a little bit of arc tool with the color guard there. Yeah, and then we had that. We used the resize tool there, a lot of push tool. So yeah, I mean, it was, in the end, quite a simple process to put this one together. Now, the next bit is to, good. See if I can take a couple more minutes and then just show you how I would kind of finalize and finish this. So what I would do is I would go to set 1. Let's get back to working forward. So click the arrow. I would select this whole drill, or at least this intro here, select everybody. And I'm going to hit my label button, L, and I'm going to put my labels down by clicking this little tool here. I'm going to get them as close to my dots as I can, and then I'm going to click 1 further. So just 1 away from the dot, and I'm going to hit these changes, apply to the whole range, and hit accept. Now, what you'll notice about that is that on every page now, all of the labels stay the same distance from the dots, and they look much nicer. And that'll look great on your drill charts. All right. Now, except it doesn't ever work on page 1. So you got to go back to page 1 and do it again. Okay. So closer, 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 further, accept. Now, the only thing we have to do now is label our folks. All right. So in this case, we have our instrumentation, and I'm going to show you what I do to label people. All right. Here's how I do it. So first of all, you'd have to know what comes next in your drill or in your music, and you want to, label your people so that the next group is in good position to carry on with the show. You wouldn't want to put all your woodwinds in the back if on the next section they all need to be in the front. So set yourself up for success. In this case, I just went with kind of an instrumentation type thing. I said I probably want some of my brass to be in this front arc because then they could really show off. So we're gonna start here with our trumpet section. All right. So I'm gonna start using my lasso tool here. I'm gonna select 14 performers. I'm gonna hit L, which is my label tool, and I like to make mine the letter and then a number. So T1. And then I hit the plus, and you'll notice it makes T1 through 14 because I've selected 14 people. Then I'm going to write trumpet in my name category and hit repeat. And the reason I do that is so that there's no confusion when you're passing out coordinate cards. They know that that's trumpet. They know that that's a T1 because there may be other ones that have a T in it, like TB for trombone or TN for tenor drums. I hit accept. Now notice it doesn't do anything to the real view. These are still snare drummers. Okay, that all comes at the end. I don't ever, you know, when I'm labeling, you gotta kind of have to get them labeled first, in my experience, and then I go back to page 1, count 0, and that's where I make them the instruments. Okay, so this will be M1 plus, I've got 6 mellophones in this band, so I'm going to put mellophone in the name. And then I'm going to hit repeat, so everybody gets that, and hit accept. Okay, now I won't make you sit through it all, but you would go through it and you would add all those people. One of the only things that I felt when I was labeling this is I made my center folks here the sousaphones, because I like to have my sousaphones kind of looking uniform. They're the biggest bell on the field. You usually want to try to make sure that they're put in a good position, that if the drill is clean, they're really going to look quite good. So I usually always try to make sure my sousaphones are balanced. The forms are real good, so their bells are so big and shiny. Okay, and then after you get all that done, you flute 1 through 12, clarinet C 1 through 10. You got to pick where you'd like to put your low reeds. Some people like to keep them with the woodwinds if they have a lot of woodwind 2D sections. Others, those low reeds will travel with the low brass if they play a lot of the same things as the low brass. So your client or yourself, if you're writing your own drill, has to come up with what's best for the music. If all those tenor saxophone players double baritone parts, they probably should be near the baritones. It's just an important thing to do. In the way I write, like I said, I don't use the lettering system that Pyware uses. I use my labels like this, and then I'll go back to count 0, and then I'll select those trumpets here, the 14 trumpets, and then I make them trumpets by pressing on the visuals editing tool, uniform and equipment, brass, trumpet, apply. And now all those trumpets are assigned, and as the drill goes, they continue to be trumpets. So then I'll go and do that for all the sections as well. And then in that case, I would be almost done with the drill file. I would always hit save, of course. And then I would fill out my production sheet. So I won't make you watch that. That's kind of the boring bit. But it is important to know that in the production sheet, one really important thing to do that I think is important is, obviously you'll have your measure numbers and this sort of thing. So you pop your measures in, measures 1-2. You want to make sure everybody knows that, you can put all performers or all, move 8, that type of thing, add any extra information. But I will tell you this, and I do this for all my bands. This next move was 24 counts, and it was measures 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 6 measures. And I will put all, and I say move 24 in half time. My monitor's in the way. There we go. In half time, and then I'll put in parentheses 12 steps. And that's the way I show that it's 6 measures, it's 24 counts, but I'd like you to do it in half time, 12 steps. I feel like there's no room for error there when teaching it, when talking to the students about it, and it's just a clear way to put it. So I'll go through all this, of course, and put all the info in, all the measures in, and then I'd be ready to export and print it. We're going to talk about that in the later sessions. I'm not going to keep you going with all that, but I hope today maybe you saw that this process of writing drill is a process of just making decisions, really. It's a process of making decisions, and you make the decision to go in this direction, and then you make the decision to go in that direction. And a lot of times it's I made a decision to go in this direction, and you get one or two different ways into it, and you go, you know what, I need to go back. And then you make a different decision. And then those decisions kind of, are compounded, and sometimes you get 2 or 3 of them down the road, and you need to go back. And there's a lot of that. And you didn't see that too much tonight because I've already saved you the time of doing that. Don't get frustrated. The best thing to do, especially if you get into a little rut, is to just keep going, give it another shot, or take a break, come back to it, and jump right back in, fresh the next day. Sometimes that's the best way to do it too, if you have time to do that. So I hope you were able to kind of glean a little bit on my workflow. If there are any questions, I can field some of those if you want to type them in the chat.
Jeff, feel free to unmute if you wanted
Yeah,
to
so-
speak to him and answer.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I was just noticing earlier when you were working, there was one that appeared, but then after you kept going, it disappeared. I've had bridges that appear now and then, and I had trouble remembering how to get rid of them.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, if you were running into it where, a lot of times where you get those problems are if you're using like the follow the leader tool, or you're using some of these other tools that do like curve paths and things like that. And so if you change one page, the next page, it gets all messed up, right? One way, see you, George. Thanks for coming, buddy. One thing that you can do is on that next page, you can either hit select that section, that person, or the whole group, and you can either hit the push tool or you can hit the adjuster tool, and then you accept it. And a lot of times it will, reroute everybody and get rid of that skip and that jump.
Thank you.
Yeah. Push tool and adjuster tool are the kind of the main ones that I use to do that. Well, very good. If you ever need anything, please make sure, as you go, if you ever need or have questions, or you'd like me to look at a file for you, drilldesignsolutions.com. You can contact me there, or drilldesignsolutions@gmail. Just pop it to me and say, Hulls, man, look at this. I wrote myself into a corner. How do I get out? I'm always happy to help folks that have questions and want to engage. It's all good.